Biggest mystery in aviation. What happened to MH370 Flight? On 8th March 2014, a Malaysia Airlines MH370 at 12:42 a.m. was on an overnight flight from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing with 239 passengers and crew on board. It suddenly disappeared. This Malaysia Airlines flight vanished without a trace, becoming one of aviation's biggest mysteries. Its last transmission was from Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah as the twin-engined aircraft moved into Vietnamese airspace in the early hours of March 8th, about 40 minutes after leaving Kuala Lumpur. "Good night, Malaysian 370, he said, as he bade farewell to Malaysian air traffic control. Then all went quiet. But while the plane disappeared from radar, it apparently continued flying for hours. Early searches of the South China Sea were wrapped up as attention shifted to a remote part of the southern Indian Ocean, where satellite pings suggested the plane came down after running out of fuel. Hundreds of millions of dollars were spent on scouring the seas without any sign of debris. A few small pieces of fuselage have been found, including a flaperon, which forms part of the wing washed up on beaches on Indian Ocean islands and in Eastern Africa. But the world knows little more than it did in 2014. MH370 has evolved into one of the greatest mysteries of modern aviation. Here is all you need to know. There were nationals of more than a dozen countries on board the lost plane, although more than half were from China. The passengers included a group of prominent Chinese artists who had been showing their calligraphy in Kuala Lumpur, 2 Iranians traveling on fake European passports, an Indonesian heading to Beijing to start a new job, a Malaysian couple on their honeymoon, young families with children, and a stunt double for Jet Li. In the cockpit, Zahari, a 53-year-old father of 3, had joined Malaysia Airlines in 1981 and was one of its top pilots. Beside him was Farid Hamid Ahmad. The 27-year-old has just qualified to co-pilot the 777. In the cabin, the Malaysian crew was led by supervisor Patrick Gomes, who had worked for the airline for 35 years. When Malaysians woke up to the news that the plane had gone missing, they were shocked. Despite perennial problems with its finances, the national carrier had a good safety record and a place in many a Malaysian heart. As the hours passed, and no one seemed to have much idea of what had happened, shock turned to disbelief. In Beijing, tearful relatives demanded to know what had happened to their loved ones. Amid the lack of answers, officials from Malaysia Airlines, civil aviation authorities, and the Malaysian government came under unprecedented international scrutiny. Then it became clear that the aircraft had never entered Vietnamese airspace. Shortly after Zahari signed off, MH370 went dark. Its transponders were turned off and its tracking system was somehow disabled. Military radar showed the plane left its flight path to fly back over northern Malaysia and Penang Island, and then out into the Andaman Sea towards the tip of the Indonesian island of Sumatra. The final sighting on military radar was on March 8th at 2:22 a.m. Malaysian time, 6 p.m. GMT, March 7th. From there, the aircraft turned south, out into the vast expanse of the Indian Ocean. In the immediate aftermath of the plane going missing, Malaysia coordinated a search that involved more than 24 countries. While initial efforts focused on the South China Sea and the Andaman Sea, attention turned to the southern Indian Ocean when the military radar findings emerged on March 12th, and the British telecommunications firm Inmarsat shared automated connections between its satellite and the 777 that suggested the plane could be somewhere along an arc of coordinates in the southern Indian Ocean. An initial aerial search of the ocean began on March 18th and covered an area of 4.5 million square kilometers, 1.7 million square miles. The multinational effort, led by Australia, failed to find any sign of the plane and ended after 6 weeks. Attention then turned to the inhospitable seabed, some 2,800 kilometers off the coast of Western Australia. The search, covering some 120,000 square kilometers, 46,332 square miles, involved ships, submarines and aircraft, and cost $147 million. Malaysia's official report into the disappearance, released in 2018, found that while foul play was probably involved, it was not possible to say who had turned off the transponders and turned the plane around. The answer can only be conclusive if the wreckage is found. Kok Soo Chon, head of the MH370 safety investigation team, told reporters at the time. Zahari came under suspicion. Kok said the investigators examined the history of the pilot and the first officer, and they were satisfied with their background, training, and mental health. We are not of the opinion it could have been an event committed by the pilots, he said, but added investigators were not ruling out any possibility since the in-air turnback was done manually and the systems in the plane had been manually turned off. We cannot exclude that there was an unlawful interference by a third party. Many people struggle to understand how a Boeing 777-200, some 64 meters long, with a wingspan of nearly 61 meters and a tail 18.5 meters high, could have gone missing. But the Indian Ocean is the world's third largest, and the water is incredibly deep, some 4,000 meters, in the places being searched. Charitha Patiarachi is a professor of coastal oceanography at the University of Western Australia, where a team of researchers carried out drift analysis that suggested debris from the plane would wash up on the shores of East African nations if it was along the coordinates that the Inmarsat pings suggested. He believes that advances in technology over the past 10 years, as well as the conditions in the ocean itself, suggest there is a high probability MH370 might finally be found. Malaysia's government has consistently said it will only resume the hunt if there is credible new evidence. It is now considering an Ocean Infinity proposal for a fresh search with new technology, although it is unclear if the company has new evidence of the plane's location. Many families who lost people in the disappearance remain steadfast in their quest for answers. They argue the mystery must be resolved, not just for personal closure, but also to prevent future disasters. The disaster has also helped to bolster aviation safety. Starting in 2025, the International Civil Aviation Organization will mandate that jets carry a device that will broadcast their position every minute if they encounter trouble, to allow authorities to locate the plane if a disaster occurs. The devices will be triggered automatically and can't be manually turned off, but the rule applies only to new jets, not the thousands of older planes still in service. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to like, subscribe, and share for more interesting videos. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update. If there is any other mysterious videos you guys would like for me to do, put some ideas in the comments section. Thank you for watching.